Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are taking a look at another brand new Nanmu figure, and as you can probably tell by the thumbnail and also the images before you, we are taking a look at the Ankylosaurus, and it is all three different variants. You have the reddish version, the Jurassic World style version, as well as the injured version, which actually has a really cool kind of an image of a skull of the Ankylosaurus there on the front, but really nice looking boxes as usual from Nanmu. So let's go ahead and break each of these open and get a look at the figures inside. So as always, as soon as we open it, we have a really nice art card here from Nanmu with a beautiful image of the Ankylosaurus here taking a drink of water. Really nice artwork as always included with these Nanmu releases. I really love the fact that they include not only really cool art cards, but just absolutely magnificent images of the dinosaurs themselves kind of in their, I guess, natural habitat. And then you can see some more really cool images of the Ankylosaurus here on the back, some nice hand-drawn images, which are also another one of my favorite parts of this is the fact that they include hand-drawn images of the dinosaurs on the back, because I absolutely love hand-drawn images of dinosaurs. Really beautiful work on the part of Nanmu continuously with these really nice art cards. And then we also have our human figure for this release, and I do believe that is Sarah Harding in there. We will get her out here in just a moment, but as far as the Ankylosaurus goes, we have the reddish brown variant right here. We also have the more Jurassic World type of a look to this one, and then we also have the injured version. All three of these look incredibly cool. I'm super excited to take a look at them. Each one is just absolutely gorgeous as far as sculpt and paint here at first glance right out of the packaging. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at these beauties right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, we will take a look at the Jurassic World type version first. You could see beautiful detailing here of the Ankylosaurus. I love the way that the skin is stretched, kind of showing off the Ankylosaurus, making some sort of a noise. Maybe it's yelling because the other member of its group is down on the ground being attacked by something. It's the injured version, and this one is kind of in a defensive posture somewhat, with the mouth kind of yelling some sort of a noise at whatever exactly is causing the damage to its friend. But you can see again that skin stretching looks really nice, as does the detailing here on the lower jaw. Beautiful scales right there, and I love the way they've kind of dry brushed the area over, and it looks perfect the way they've done that, really nicely bringing that detail out and making that detail really jump out at you. The beak as well is sculpted and painted quite nicely. It's painted with a nice grayish coloration. The inside of the mouth as well. Look at inside the mouth there. That looks beautiful. You can almost see the throat of the Ankylosaurus back there, and it's really nicely painted with a very realistic tone of color for the inside of the mouth and beautifully glossed. It looks extremely realistic and lifelike, really having that very realistic kind of saliva-y appearance to the inside of the mouth. You can see that the eyes are painted with a nice white coloration there in the background, and then you have like a green and a black pupil. It looks really well done. Also, the eyes are very small, so that is impressively nicely done overall. When it comes to an eye that is that size, you can see that the horns here on the Ankylosaurus's head have a nice grayish coloration that is painted on there. They actually almost have a few different tones of color in certain areas, and you can see that the scaling up here on the face, the detailing all around the eye and the upper part of the head looks beautiful, really nicely done. And I love once you come up here to the top of the head, you have like a bluish wash, which really makes that detail jump out at you, but that just looks so cool the way they've included that nice bluish wash there, and really shows off just how gorgeous the sculpt is up here on the top of the head. As we start to move into the back of the Ankylosaurus, the armored area as well looks extremely nicely done as far as the sculpt work goes, but you can see there's many different variations of color included up here on the back, and you can also see that it's kind of dry brushed over with like a bluish coloration, which really looks cool in contrast to that dark kind of like black or dark gray. I love the kind of bluish tones to the Ankylosaurus overall, and you can also see as we come down here that that blue wash that we saw up in the head is used down here on both legs in the kind of like shoulder area and the thigh area. You can see bluish wash looks beautiful and brings that detail out again perfectly. But again, looking up here at the top of the Ankylosaurus, the armored area, you can see so many like cracks and crevices within the armored area on the back, and you can also see that the spikes that run the length of the Ankylosaurus in each area is really nicely done, and I can say that they're actually pretty darn sharp, so this is definitely a very nicely done model as far as straying far away from the toy aspect and really capturing a beautiful, very high quality model. It's definitely overall, like, the quality is off the charts if you ask me, as far as a really high quality model of an Ankylosaurus, a Jurassic World style Ankylosaurus. You can also see here on the underside of the animal, beautiful detailing here again with a really nice wash, a nice dark wash, bringing that detail out beautifully. But you can see that the skin texture here on the underside looks really nice. Lots of skin wrinkling and everything going on up here on the underside of the jaw. But once you get back here, the skin texture starts to get a little bit bigger, a little bit more of like a scaly type of a look in certain areas, and it looks really nice. And again, it's all brought out beautifully with a nice dark wash. But then if we look over here at the legs, you can again see that very nice large scaling here that I was just mentioning, has that nice blue wash. And then as we move down, you could see some more beautiful skin texture, as well as the elbow back here. Nice wrinkling here in the joint of the elbow. Beautiful foot sculpt as well, really nicely done. Very nicely painted nails as well. They appear to have a gloss coat, so they shine quite realistically. As we move back here into the stomach, I love these large scales right here in the stomach region of the Ankylosaurus. That looks really, really nicely done. Then back into the rear leg, you can actually see the skin kind of stretching off of the leg right there, just sort of giving you an idea of the movement of the dinosaur as it's occurring in this moment in time, and the way that the skin would be reacting right there. That's nicely done. You also have the kneecap right there in the front of the leg, moving down here. Lots of creasing going on here in the ankle area, as well as, again, a beautiful foot sculpt back here as well. And then moving back up here, you can see some more skin wrinkling going on in the tail area as the body transitions into the tail. And then as we move back here into the tail, you can see how beautiful, first of all, these spikes look here on the underside. They look gorgeous, and the way they've been painted looks really, really good as well. And then as we get back here into the club tail, the detailing of the club tail is absolutely awesome. But you can also see, I love that they've given it kind of like a greenish paint here on the underside. Really, really nice tones of green used there. And then as we transition to the top, it's more of like a light blue, which matches with the rest of the body and the way that that is painted. It looks really nice. And again, the sculpt and detail back here in the club tail as well is just fantastic. And then running back up here into the body, you can see this side also. Again, you have that really nice blue wash in both the thigh and the shoulder area here of the front leg. Some very large scales showing up there. The legs are almost in sort of a neutral position as far as the stance of the dinosaur. You can see it's almost in the same position on both sides. It really looks like it's kind of tensing up and just trying to like hold its ground. You can really see that throughout the sculpt, and you can really see like the muscles tensing and flexing. It looks really good the way that they've sculpted this out, looking like, again, the dinosaur is in a very defensive positioning. You can also see that fantastic scale work here in the side of the stomach over here. Both foot sculpts look good on this side as well. Lots of really nice detailing included. Again, the skin texture up and down the legs looks phenomenal as well, and the paintwork is just great. Overall, there's so many different tones of color, and everything is just really well done. There's no sloppiness at all as far as this paintwork on the Ankylosaurus goes. So this version here is fantastic. And then we also have the reddish version, which we now don't really need to go over the sculpt, as we just looked at the sculpt of the previous one. This is exactly the same sculpt as the one we just looked at. It's just a different paint scheme. So up here on the face, you can see a good bit of variation as far as like a light brown down here. Again, masterfully dry brushed on there. It's really well done. And then you can see like a darker brown or like a reddish brown as we get up here into the upper part of the head. You can see the eyes are painted with a nice greenish coloration again, with a nice black pupil. They also shine very realistically, which I don't know that I mentioned that on the other Ankylosaurus. Then coming back here into the mouth, you can again see that the mouth is beautifully done as far as the very nice paintwork and detailing and the really nice gloss coat used. This is a darker coloration for the inside of the mouth as opposed to what we saw in the previous Ankylosaurus, so that's really cool as well to have some difference between the two. Beautifully painted beak with a nice grayish coloration over here, and on top of the head of this one we have a nice kind of like a reddish wash to bring that detail out. On the previous one we had like a bluish wash. This one we have a nice reddish wash, and that's really well done overall, and again makes that detail just pop so much. I love when Nanmu does things like that, but you can really get a good idea of how nice the sculpt looks here, again with this beautiful paintwork that they've applied to this one. It looks fantastic on both sides. Really nice sculpt and detail shining through with this nice paintwork. On the underside, you can see like a creamy color starting out here with like that nice like light brown turns into like a creamy color there, and then transitions to like a light grayish sort of here on the underside, but also again sports quite a few different variations of color as far as the underside goes. And then as we come back up into the body, you can see it transition to like that reddish brown on the side of the dinosaur. And again, we have that reddish wash here in both the shoulder and then the thigh area back here, just like what we had seen on the previous one, but really nicely done. And I love the transitions between the colors to like this lighter brown back here on the back of the legs. Very nicely done as far as the paintwork on this one goes. You can see what the feet look like as far as the paint application. Again, the nice wash is really nicely done all over the figure in every area. There's that beautiful wash included here that just really brings the detail out in perfect fashion. The club tail as well looks just beautiful beyond belief. And then as we move back up here into the back, you can now see like this reddish brown, but you can also see some darker reds that kind of run throughout the dinosaur in certain areas. And you can also see that as far as these spikes go, there's like a darker coloration that kind of runs the length of those spikes down the back of the Ankylosaurus. So that looks really cool as well. These spikes that run along the side and actually up on the back are really nicely painted, and again with that nice dry brushing or a nice dark wash that they've given it, you can see all the details, all the cracks and crevices of each of the spikes of the Ankylosaurus up here on the armored back of the dinosaur, and it looks so realistic and so beautiful overall. Again, I'm just always extremely impressed by Nanmu when it comes to not only their sculpt, which their sculpts are always off the charts, but their paintwork as well. Another beautiful version of this Ankylosaurus. And then we have the injured version. Now this one, as far as the paintwork goes, is pretty much just the same as the first version that we had looked at, although I will say after a little bit of like an inspection, I feel like the bluish coloration might be a little stronger on this one as opposed to the other one, which I actually really like that aspect because it really gives it a bit of difference between the two. And if you bring the two of them up, you'll see what I mean here. As far as like the blues on this, let me actually turn it in a better position there. The blues on this one I think are a little bit brighter, whereas the blues on this one are a little bit darker. So it really gives it its own individuality, its own personality, I guess you could say. And one other really cool aspect about this one is actually that this one is larger than the main versions of the Ankylosaurus. Like if we look at the head sculpt there together, the injured version is definitely larger overall than this. And even if we look at the like side spikes of the dinosaur, actually let's turn it again, just like we had just done, to see the side spikes. Now there you can see that the side spikes of this one, the injured one, are much larger than the standard version, and generally the body is much larger than the standard version. So that's one thing that I think is really cool about this. Maybe this version, this variant here is like an older one. So maybe this one is actually injured and taken down because it's older. It's a little slower. You can definitely see overall, again, the differences between the two. It's much larger, but even areas like the spikes here on the side of the dinosaur are kind of like chipped and broken, which also kind of reassures me that this is an older one, as it's seen a lot more action in its lifetime than the original one that we had looked at. And also, again, just generally the larger size, the more kind of like larger spikes that come off of the side, and just generally the dinosaur looking larger gives it an older appearance to it. And maybe again that's why it's been taken down. It was a little bit of an easier meal than some of these younger versions here. But I also love generally that it's bigger and makes it look older because it gives more variety to your set of Ankylosaurs. Having different age groups and everything really gives you a very cool family overall. But if we look here at the head sculpt, the eye is actually a really nice bluish coloration there with a nice black pupil. And you can see some slices here on the head sculpt of the Ankylosaurus. Unfortunately, again, our Ankylosaurus is definitely injured here. That beautiful blue wash up here on the head, again, just like we had seen on the previous one. And then coming down here into the side of the dinosaur, you can see some more slits here with a nice blood type of an effect, showing some of the wounds that this unfortunate Ankylosaurus has received. And I love the way that the legs are kind of bent and just really looks very natural with the way that it's positioned and kind of been forced over onto its side. If we look over here, you can really see now how flattened out the side of this dinosaur is, just showing the immense weight that is bearing down on this side of the body at this point in time. of this poor Ankylosaurus, but you can also see that the sculpt and detail as well as the paintwork is just phenomenal again on this one, just like every other one that we have seen so far from these Ankylosaurs from Nanmu. And I love how they just all generally look a little bit different. Like the other version of this color scheme had like a greenish look here to the underside, whereas this one has sort of a greenish look but not quite as bright. So there's just very small differences within each, and I really like that a lot. And again, the detailing here of the underside with like the skin kind of bunching up and folding and reacting and stretching and everything with the way it should be is really nicely shown with the positioning of the Ankylosaurus and the way it's kind of been forced down onto its side. It looks extremely, extremely cool. The inside of the mouth as well has that nice gloss coat. Very nice realistic paint job. So another beautiful, beautiful variant of this Ankylosaurus, and I definitely recommend all three of these, but I love having this kind of injured version. It can really create some extremely cool diorama possibilities, and having these other two with it just creates a really cool family of Ankylosaurs, and again, off the charts awesome work on the part of Nanmu yet again. And then here is our Sarah Harding figure, which you can see looks pretty darn nice, but the very bright coloration of the figure kind of drowns out a little bit of the detail. You can't see it as nicely as you probably should be able to, especially if it had some alternate like paint variation to it, aside from just this white coloration that is on this. I definitely intend on painting some of these. I say this every single Nanmu review, but I definitely intend on painting some of these figures at some point in the near future to really bring out the detail of them and then show them to you guys. But again, another awesome figure on the part of Nanmu as far as the human figure goes. And I love the fact that they've created a Sarah Harding, because that's definitely a character from the Jurassic films that has really been overlooked. And it's nice to have one now from Nanmu. Now, as far as a size goes on each of these, if I don't knock my backdrop over, for the standard version, which actually would be this color scheme, this is probably the alternate color scheme, but the sculpts are the same, so I can measure this one. For the regular version, you are looking at around the 9-inch range, or about 23 centimeters for a length, and then for a height, about 2 inches or 5 centimeters on the head, or about closing in on 2 3/4 or 7 centimeters for the back. Now for the injured version, this one's going to be a little harder to measure kind of because it's in a slant. So if we go from the positioning of the tail straight to the head, you are looking actually right around the 9-inch range again, or 23 centimeters. But that really also shows you how much larger this one is than the others, because if this tail was actually stretched out the correct way, this would be a significantly larger Ankylosaurus. And then for a height, a little over 2 inches, or about 5.5 centimeters high, or around the 2 3/4-inch range, or around the 7 centimeter area, somewhere in that size range. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon mixed in within our Ankylosaurus herd. And you can see next to these figures, again, definitely sporting some pretty significant size are these Ankylosaurus figures. Definitely very nicely sized overall. They are no slouch when it comes to kind of being on the larger side of things when it comes to dinosaur figures. And being an Ankylosaurus, you would expect it to be a fairly large figure. But for another size comparison, there are the Nanmu Spinosaurus and Nanmu Carnotaurus figures, again, next to our Ankylosaurus. And hopefully if you have any of these Nanmu figures, you'll have a pretty good idea of the size in comparison to these right here. So these brand new Ankylosaurus figures from Nanmu are absolutely awesome in every possible way. I could not possibly be any more impressed. Again, from Nanmu, this never seems to be an issue in any way, shape, or form when it comes to a Nanmu release, is impressing me, because they continuously do such a great job on their figures and are always impressing me in every possible way. The sculpts of each of the Ankylosaurus are extremely well done. Whether it's the standing version or the down on the ground injured version, you are just going to find tons of detail included in both. And I really can say that Nanmu never skimps out when it comes to the detail department of their figures. Each and every one is so beautifully sculpted and detailed, and really truly showing exactly what would be going on in that moment of the dinosaur's life perfectly in the sculpt, even including things like with the injured version, kind of the eyes just generally showing fear, I think. The face of the Ankylosaurus, if you look at the larger version in comparison to the more standard version, the kind of injured version in comparison to the healthier version, you could see just a difference in the size of the eyes. The injured version's eyes are a good bit larger because I think they're wider, just kind of expressing fear in the face of the Ankylosaurus, whereas with the kind of regular standing version, the eyes are kind of squinted a little more, kind of showing off the defensive nature of the Ankylosaurus at that moment in time, trying to kind of make itself appear a little angrier, a little meaner. And I really love that Nanmu includes little details like that, just super cool little aspects to the sculpt that I think really go a long way as far as realism overall goes. And again, every ounce of detail as far as like skin folding and skin reacting to the movement of the dinosaur and the positioning of the body is beautifully shown in the sculpt as well. Really doing a great job as far as showing that in the injured version with the kind of way the legs are bent and everything. It just looks extremely, extremely cool. And it's not often that you get kind of like an injured dinosaur like that down on the ground as far as a model goes. You usually get either a living dinosaur or a deceased version, but this time we actually have an injured version thanks to Nanmu, and I think that is just extremely cool and just again creates so many really cool diorama possibilities that I am just head over heels in love with that version specifically. But even the regular version is just gorgeous as far as the sculpt and paintwork on both goes. I really love that reddish version. I'm not too sure if I like the reddish version or the kind of like darker bluish Jurassic World style version better, but I think both are really well done. But the paintwork on both again looks super nice, and they've done a good job of kind of making the figures look a bit flashy, but at the same time really natural and realistic. And I also think they've done a good job on the Jurassic World style version of really capturing the appearance of what it looks like in the film. So as far as the accuracy department of both the sculpt and paint goes on the Jurassic World style version, I think they have done just a tremendous job on both the standard and injured versions. Both are just awesome. And then that, again, reddish brown version is beautiful as well. Really love the paintwork on each and every one of these Ankylosaurus figures and the sculpt as well. And then including a Sarah Harding figure is just the icing on the cake. So if you are looking for a really nice Nanmu release, I can definitely say with complete confidence that if you're a fan of Ankylosaurus or Nanmu or Jurassic World or just dinosaurs in general, each and every one of these Ankylosaurus figures from Nanmu are a complete win, and I highly, highly recommend anybody interested in them to go ahead and pull the trigger on either of the ones you are interested in or all of them. Personally, I think all of them is probably the best way to go if you can afford to buy each and every one of them, because having a really cool herd of Ankylosaurus is just awesome, especially when you have 3 different variations like this that all look a little different but all look like they belong to the same family. That is just awesome. So again, I will include links in the description to Dan's Dinosaurs where you can pick these up for yourself. So make sure you head to the description, go buy yourself some absolutely awesome Nanmu Ankylosaurus figures, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.